When someone puts a phrase like, "This text is a trap," it immediately stirs up a sense of confusion, unease, and sometimes even self-doubt. And that's intentional. It's not about clarity. It's not about connection. It's about control. A statement like that is designed to hook you, to make you second, guess yourself, to make you question whether you're about to step into something that will cost you peace. This is not a neutral message. It is bait, and the entire purpose of bait is to lure you into a situation that benefits someone else at your expense. You need to recognize this dynamic for what it is, because the moment you get pulled in, you're no longer operating from clarity. You're operating from fear, obligation, or guilt. This type of communication often comes from people who thrive on destabilizing you. They drop ambiguous, provocative, or alarming statements into your world and sit back while you twist yourself into knots, trying to decode them. That effort drains you. It forces you to give energy to their words instead of to your own life. And this is the trap. You are not dealing with straightforward communication. You are dealing with a strategy of manipulation. The more you engage, the more power you hand over. You may feel tempted to respond immediately, to demand clarification, or to prove that you are not falling for it. But even that is part of the trap. The goal of this kind of text is not to inform you. It is to pull you into a game where the rules are never explained and where you can never truly win. The moment you play, you've already lost. The most effective way to protect yourself is not to participate in the game at all. Your silence, your boundaries, your refusal to dance to their tune, that is your power. Notice what happens inside of you when you receive a message like this. Your body tenses. Your mind races. You start imagining worst-case scenarios. That physiological reaction is exactly what the sender wants. They want you to be unsettled, to seek reassurance, to make you reach out so that they can reassert control. It's important to remember that the unease you feel doesn't mean the message has merit. It simply means the manipulation is working. The discomfort is real, but the content is hollow. The trap works best on people who care, who are conscientious, who don't like leaving things unresolved. You want to make sense of it. You want to repair. You want to prove you are not the one in the wrong. But those very qualities are being exploited. The person who sends a message like, "This text is a trap," is not speaking from a place of love, empathy, or genuine connection. They are weaponizing ambiguity. They are showing you that your peace of mind is not their priority. That realization may be painful, but it is also liberating. You have to reclaim the narrative. Instead of asking, "What do they mean?" you need to ask, "Why am I giving this energy?" Instead of spiraling into overanalysis, ground yourself in the truth. You are allowed to walk away from conversations that are designed to harm you. You don't owe anyone your confusion, your overthinking, or your sleepless nights. The trap only works when you step into it. By choosing not to, you are not being cold, you are being wise. And here is what's essential. You can't change the person who sends texts like this. You can't make them communicate with transparency if they are invested in keeping you off balance. What you can do is change how you respond. You can set the boundary that you will not engage with ambiguity designed to provoke. You can refuse to give someone else the keys to your emotional well-being. That is not cruelty. That is survival. Every time you choose not to engage, you reclaim a piece of yourself. Every time you put down the phone, instead of picking up the bait, you strengthen the muscle of self-respect. You start to see the trap not as a mystery you need to solve, but as a pattern you can refuse to participate in. This is where your freedom lies, not in changing them, but in protecting you. And that choice is always yours to make. When you receive a message that says something like, "This text is a trap," you have to understand that it is not about straightforward communication. It is not about conveying information, clearing confusion, or building connection. It is about destabilizing you. These kinds of words are crafted to create doubt in your mind, to make you feel as though you are already on the defensive before the conversation has even begun. Ambiguous texts of this nature are tools of manipulation. They thrive on your curiosity, your need for clarity, and your desire to resolve tension. The person sending such a message is not interested in easing your mind. They are interested in capturing it. When someone uses language that is vague, cryptic, or provocative, it shifts the burden of interpretation onto you. You are the one who has to figure out what it means, what it could be pointing toward, what danger lies ahead. This imbalance of power is intentional. It keeps you guessing, it keeps you off balance, and it places you in a reactive position while the sender maintains control. The manipulation is not in what is said, but in what is left unsaid. The trap is set in the silence between the words, in the uncertainty you are left with, in the mental space it occupies after you read it. That is why it is so powerful. It is not just a message. It becomes an echo in your mind. Think about how you respond internally to something like this. Your heart rate increases, your thoughts scatter, and your body tightens. You feel compelled to make sense of it because it is human nature to seek coherence. But this is where the manipulation works so effectively. Instead of focusing on your priorities, your peace, or your tasks, your energy gets redirected into decoding someone else's riddle. You start replaying past interactions. You wonder if you did something wrong. You question your own reality. This cognitive loop is exactly what the manipulator wants. They want your mind preoccupied, your emotions heightened, and your boundaries softened. People who use this kind of communication often rely on your empathy and your conscientiousness. If you are someone who values connection, if you are someone who does not like conflict, you are even more likely to fall into the trap. You may think, if I don't respond, I will seem dismissive. Or, if I ignore this, I might miss something important. But those thoughts are not a reflection of the situation's urgency. They are reflections of your kindness being exploited. The truth is, no healthy relationship requires you to decode cryptic threats or ominous hints. Healthy communication is direct. It may be difficult, but it is clear. It does not leave you in a state of fear or confusion. Another layer to understand is that ambiguous texts are a form of bait. Just like a fisherman uses bait to lure a fish, the sender uses ambiguous wording to lure you into engaging. The hook is not in the words themselves, but in the reaction they produce. Once you bite, once you respond with confusion or curiosity, the manipulator knows they have your attention. They know you are unsettled enough to keep the conversation going, even though it does not serve you. The power dynamic is established in that moment. You are the one searching for answers, while they are the one controlling how much clarity you will ever receive. The reason these texts work so effectively is because they exploit basic psychological tendencies. Human beings are hardwired to seek closure, to reduce uncertainty, to resolve ambiguity. A phrase like, "This text is a trap," hijacks those instincts. It leaves an open loop in your brain that screams to be closed. And the quickest way to close it, you believe, is to engage with the person who opened it. But here is the reality. The loop was never meant to be closed. It was meant to stay open, to keep you tethered, to keep you unsettled. Once you understand that, you can start to recognize these texts for what they are. Not puzzles to solve, but mechanisms of control. It takes practice to step back and see ambiguous communication as a manipulation tactic rather than a mystery you are obligated to solve. You may feel an almost physical urge to respond, to demand clarification, to prove you are not falling into the trap. But responding is exactly what the manipulator is counting on. They want you invested. They want you confused. They want you unsettled. And when you see it clearly, you realize that ambiguous texts are not just careless words. They are deliberate tools designed to control your attention, your emotions, and your peace. The moment you engage with a manipulative message, you are stepping directly into the trap it was designed to create. That is the part so many people struggle to see, because it feels like the natural thing to do is respond. When you receive something ambiguous, provocative, or alarming, your instinct is to react, to seek clarity, to defend yourself, or to try to show that you are not easily fooled. But what may feel like taking control is actually handing over control. The real trap lies in your engagement. These messages cannot function without your participation. They only gain power when you invest your energy in them. Think about it this way. If someone sends a message that is deliberately vague or ominous, and you immediately reply with confusion or questions. You have just given them confirmation that their tactic worked. You showed them that you are unsettled, that you are curious, that you are willing to pour your time and emotional energy into their ambiguity. Now they know they can keep you hooked with as little effort as a few words. Each time you take the bait, you reinforce the dynamic. It is not just about that single interaction. It becomes a pattern. You get stuck in a cycle where they provoke, you respond, and they maintain the upper hand. The reason this trap is so effective is because it uses your good qualities against you. If you are thoughtful, you want to understand. If you are caring, you want to repair. If you value honesty, you want to seek truth. But when you direct those instincts towards someone who thrives on confusion and control, you are left drained instead of fulfilled. They exploit the very traits that make you a good communicator, twisting them into tools that work against you. And the more you engage, the more you teach yourself that their behavior deserves your attention, which is not true. Engagement also shifts your focus away from what matters. Instead of spending your energy on your goals, your peace, or your relationships that actually nurture you, you waste hours or even days trapped in their maze. You reread the message. You analyze it. You ask friends for their opinions. All of that mental labor is work you are doing for them. They wrote a few words, you are doing the rest. That imbalance is the very essence of the trap. They expend little effort while you exhaust yourself trying to make sense of something that was never meant to make sense in the first place. Another aspect of engagement is that it pulls you into a false sense of responsibility. Once you respond, you feel tethered to the conversation. You feel like you have to keep replying even if the interaction grows more toxic. And because they know you are invested, they can shift the tone however they want. Accusatory, dismissive, manipulative, and you are left trying to manage it. That is how control is established, not in one message, but in the momentum that builds once you've taken the bait. They lead, you follow, and your sense of agency slips away little by little. It is important to recognize that disengagement is not weakness. In fact, it is the strongest possible response to a manipulative trap. Refusing to participate communicates that you are not willing to hand over your energy. It tells the other person that your attention is not something they can control with a few cryptic words. When you disengage, you reclaim the power dynamic. You place yourself back in the driver's seat because you are deciding how you will spend your mental and emotional resources. This does not mean you are ignoring reality. It means you are refusing to entertain games that were designed to harm you. One of the hardest things about avoiding engagement is the silence it creates. Silence feels uncomfortable. It feels unresolved. It makes you wonder if you are missing something. But in that discomfort lies your strength. The silence is not a void, It is a boundary. It is the space where you are no longer giving away your peace in exchange for someone else's chaos. The trap only works when you step inside it. Once you learn to stay outside, the power it has over you begins to crumble. The person who tries to provoke you will eventually see that their tactics no longer land, and you will see that you are more resilient than you realized. This is the paradox of manipulation. It looks like they hold the power, but in reality, their power only exists if you agree to participate. The moment you stop engaging, the trap dissolves. It loses its grip. You cannot be controlled by a game you refuse to play. When a message like "this text is a trap" shows up on your phone, the immediate response that arises in your body is not random. You feel a jolt of adrenaline, your stomach might tighten, and your thoughts start spinning in different directions. This is your nervous system reacting to ambiguity and perceived threat. It is designed to keep you alert in moments of danger. But here, that natural reaction is being hijacked. The person who sent the text knows exactly what they are doing. They are not providing clarity. They are creating tension because they understand that your emotional response will make you far easier to influence. The reaction you feel is the point of the message. It is not accidental. It is intentional. This is the hallmark of manipulative communication. It does not rely on facts or transparency. It relies on creating a feeling in you that compels you to act. That feeling might be fear, guilt, or anxiety, but the result is the same. You feel unsettled and you want relief. You want to resolve the unease. You want to know what it means. You want to make the discomfort go away. And the fastest way to do that seems to be engaging with the person who caused it in the first place. That is where the manipulation works best. They generate the storm and then position themselves as the only way for you to find shelter. The discomfort you experience is real. The racing thoughts, the restlessness, the urge to respond. All of it is your body and mind reacting to uncertainty. But here is the critical truth. The fact that the discomfort is real does not mean the message has genuine meaning. The intensity of your reaction can trick you into believing that the message itself must be important. But that is the illusion. The message is hollow, but your emotional response fills it with weight. You end up assigning significance to something that was designed only to provoke. Recognizing this separation between your real feelings and the empty content is one of the most important steps in breaking free from the manipulation. It is essential to understand how ambiguity fuels this process. When words are vague, your mind naturally tries to complete the puzzle. You fill in the blanks with your own fears, doubts, or memories. The sender doesn't need to provide details because your own imagination will do the work for them. You might start thinking about past mistakes, old conflicts, or possible hidden meanings. Suddenly, you are carrying the weight of interpretations that were never explicitly stated. That is how powerful ambiguity can be. It turns your own mind into the engine of your stress. The manipulator knows they don't have to say much. They only have to say enough to trigger your tendency to fill in the gaps. Once you recognize that your reaction is being manufactured, you can begin to separate yourself from it. Just because you feel anxious does not mean the situation deserves your attention. Just because your body goes into alert mode does not mean there is a real danger you need to address. Emotions can be triggered by false alarms, and manipulative messages are essentially false alarms designed to keep you on edge. By pausing, by observing your reaction without immediately responding, you start to reclaim control. You remind yourself that the unease is within you, but it does not have to dictate your actions. Another important aspect is how these tactics exploit empathy. If you care about relationships, if you care about resolving conflict, your discomfort can push you to engage because you don't want to leave things unresolved. You might think you are doing the right thing by addressing the message, but in reality, you are walking into a carefully laid snare. The manipulator depends on your conscientiousness. They know that you are more likely to prioritize peace than to tolerate silence. That's why recognizing the strategy is so important. Because once you see it for what it is, you realize the choice is not between responding and being careless. The choice is between protecting your peace or surrendering it to someone else's game. The discomfort is uncomfortable, but it is not dangerous. It is a temporary state your body moves into when it perceives threat or conflict. If you can allow yourself to feel it without reacting to it, the intensity will pass. The message does not deserve to dictate your peace of mind. You deserve to know that your emotions, while valid, are not proof that someone else's cryptic words hold truth or value. The manipulation depends on you equating your emotional reaction with their importance. When you learn to separate the two, you stop giving away power you never had to lose. Boundaries are the most powerful tool you have when dealing with someone who communicates in ways meant to unsettle or manipulate you. You cannot control how they choose to speak, but you can absolutely control how much access they have to your peace of mind. When you receive something like, "This text is a trap," it is easy to feel like you have no choice but to respond because the discomfort feels intolerable. But the truth is that you do have a choice, and that choice is your boundary. Choosing not to engage is not avoidance. It is an act of self-respect. It is you saying, "I am not willing to hand over my stability to someone else's game." That is the essence of a boundary, protecting what is yours to protect, which is your energy, your time, and your emotional well-being. A boundary is not about changing the other person. It is about changing your own behavior in the face of theirs. If someone consistently communicates with ambiguity, hostility, or manipulation, You cannot force them to become clear, respectful, or honest. That is not within your control. What is within your control is how you respond, or if you respond at all. That is where boundaries live. A boundary is a commitment you make to yourself about what you will and will not allow. For example, you can decide, I will not engage with messages designed to provoke me, or I will not participate in conversations that leave me feeling confused and diminished. These are not rules for them, they are standards for you. And when you live by them, you start to reclaim the parts of yourself that manipulation tries to erode. When you practice boundaries, you also redefine the meaning of silence. Many people fear silence because it feels like abandonment or conflict avoidance. But in reality, silence can be one of the strongest boundaries you set. It communicates clearly that you will not play the game. It says more than any explanation ever could. The absence of engagement is a statement of self-worth. It shows that you do not need to justify yourself to someone who is unwilling to communicate with clarity and respect. This is difficult at first because it requires tolerating the discomfort that comes with not reacting. But over time, that silence becomes empowering. It becomes the evidence that you are in control of your responses, not them. Boundaries also create space for clarity within yourself. When you stop engaging with manipulative communication, you free up energy that was previously wasted on decoding and overthinking. You begin to see the dynamic more clearly because you are not tangled in it. You notice patterns. You recognize how often they use ambiguity to control you, and you realize just how much of your peace has been sacrificed in the past. That awareness is painful, but it is also liberating. It shows you that you have been carrying weight that was never yours to carry. And in that recognition, you gain the strength to set even stronger boundaries moving forward. It is important to remember that boundaries will often be tested. The person sending manipulative texts will likely push harder when they realize their usual tactics are no longer working. They may escalate, guilt trip, or accuse you of being cold. That is not evidence that your boundaries are wrong. It is evidence that they are working. Manipulators do not like losing control, so they will try to claw it back. Your task in those moments is to hold steady. The strength of a boundary is not in setting it once, but in maintaining it consistently, even when pressured. Over time, consistency teaches others how to treat you, but more importantly, it teaches you how to treat yourself. By choosing not to engage, you are not being cruel, you are being protective. You are protecting the parts of you that deserve safety, clarity, and peace. You are protecting your right to spend your time and energy on things that matter rather than on endless cycles of confusion. That is the gift of boundaries. They allow you to step out of manipulation and into freedom. They remind you that you cannot stop people from sending traps, but you can stop yourself from walking into them Boundaries are not walls to shut people out. They are gates that you control, deciding who and what gets access to your inner world. And when you take that responsibility seriously, you reclaim the power that manipulation tries to steal. The reality of receiving a message like, "This text is a trap," is that it exposes the deeper truth about manipulative communication. It is never about connection. It is about control. The ambiguity, the provocation, the unease that floods your body when you read it are all deliberate outcomes. The moment you recognize this, you stop treating these interactions as puzzles to solve and start seeing them as patterns to refuse. The trap is not in the words, it is in the engagement, and the power only exists if you hand it over. Your discomfort may feel overwhelming, but it is not proof that the message holds meaning. It is proof that the tactic is working. The way out is not through decoding or confrontation, but through boundaries. Boundaries protect your peace, remind you of your worth, and give you the freedom to disengage from dynamics that erode you. You cannot change someone else's intent, but you can absolutely change how much of your life you allow their manipulation to take up. And that shift from confusion to clarity, from reaction to choice, is where your true strength lies.